The humid night air of August 14th wrapped around the small, unsuspecting town of Millford like a cloak, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and distant ocean mist. It was a kind of quiet evening where you could hear the crickets sing, and the occasional rustle of leaves was the only interruption to the calm, serene stillness. Yet, as the clock struck 10:45 p.m., the tranquility was shattered by a single, distant scream, a sound that will forever echo through the town's history. Inside a modest, two-story home on Elm Street, Adrianna Younge, a 27-year-old schoolteacher, sat alone in her dimly lit living room, scrolling through her phone. She had just returned from her evening shift at the local high school. The neighborhood, a middle-class area with neatly trimmed lawns and quiet streets, was a far cry from the chaos that would soon unfold. In the midst of her routine evening, a shadow passed outside her window, just a fleeting silhouette. Then came another scream, this time, closer. Adrianna froze, her phone slipping from her hands as her heart raced. For a moment, she considered calling the police, but her hesitation was drowned out by the sound of footsteps approaching her front door. The doorbell rang. A voice, one she didn't recognize, called out from the other side. "Open up, Adrianna. It's the police. We need your help." But something felt off. As she hesitated, a sudden loud bang followed by the sound of shuffling feet jolted her. With one last glance through the peephole, Adrianna's pulse quickened. There were two men outside, dressed in what seemed to be police uniforms, but something about their movements, their tense, hurried glances, didn't seem right. Before she could react, the door burst open with a force that sent her stumbling back. The room exploded into chaos. Before we dive deeper into this chilling investigation, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. We post true crime, Suspenseful stories every day, and each case is more shocking than the last. If you're new to the channel, be sure to catch up with our previous videos to immerse yourself fully in these gripping tales. Now, let's jump right back into the story. By the time the police arrived at the scene, it was too late. The body of Adrianna Younge was found slumped on the floor of a living room, lifeless, the remnants of a single gunshot wound to her chest still evident. The blood had stained the hardwood floors, a grim reminder of the horror that unfolded within those walls. The two officers who had knocked on her door were nowhere to be found. Detective Richard Collins, a seasoned officer with the Millford Police Department, arrived at the scene at precisely 11:15 p.m. His face was grim, his hands trembling slightly as he walked through the threshold. This was the kind of case he had always dreaded, one that promised to be riddled with confusion and misinformation. But what was particularly troubling was the state of Adrianna's home. It was pristine, untouched, aside from the pool of blood and the scattered evidence that didn't quite make sense. A badge was found on the floor near Adrianna's body, half crushed underfoot. An unusual detail, given the nature of the situation. No identification, no police radio, only the badge. The initial presumption was that it had been a botched robbery or a targeted attack. However, as Detective Collins spoke to neighbors and combed through Adrianna's belongings, he found no sign of forced entry, no missing valuables. Everything seemed too perfect. As the investigation ramped up, Detective Collins and his team began interviewing people who had seen Adrianna earlier in the day. It turned out she had been in high spirits, excited to meet her friends for a gathering at the local bar. She had even mentioned how she was planning to finish some work for the upcoming semester. Nothing unusual stood out from her day. However, a surprising development occurred when a neighbor, Mrs. Foster, came forward. "I saw two men near Adrianna's house earlier that evening," Mrs. Foster stated nervously. "They were dressed in police uniforms, but they didn't seem like real officers. They were just too casual. I never saw them before." Detective Collins raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by too casual?" Mrs. Foster explained further. "They weren't carrying anything that looked like police equipment. No radios, no guns visible. Just regular clothing underneath their uniforms, like they were trying to blend in." That detail caught Collins off guard. How could someone impersonate a police officer so convincingly? He knew the answer to that wasn't going to be easy to find. He immediately called for an analysis of the badge found at the crime scene. As the forensic team worked tirelessly, it became clear that the badge wasn't genuine, merely a well-crafted fake. This revelation shifted the investigation in an entirely new direction. But where would it lead? The days following Adrianna's death were filled with more questions and answers. The supposed officers were untraceable. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses provided no leads. No one had seen anyone suspicious in the area. The town was on edge, the fear palpable. Then, a breakthrough occurred. Detective Collins received an anonymous tip from a local source, a name, Rick Bennett, a known criminal in the area with ties to several underground activities. Bennett was known for dealing in stolen goods and occasionally dabbling in shady dealings with corrupt officials. Could he be connected to Adrianna's death? Collins set up a discreet meeting with Bennett, who was surprisingly cooperative. Bennett revealed that just days before Adrianna's murder, he had been in contact with a group of men, some of whom were attempting to procure police uniforms. But when Collins pressed him further about any involvement in the crime, Bennett became evasive. "They weren't real cops," Bennett muttered, glancing around nervously. "They were just pretending. I don't know much more than that. I only know one of their names. Rick, that's all I heard." A sense of unease settled over Collins. "Rick, and what's his last name?" "I don't know," Bennett replied, "but it's the same guy they all talk about." Theories surrounding Adrianna's murder began to swell in the town. Was she a victim of a random act of violence, a mistaken identity, or something deeper? The most pressing question remained: why Adrianna Younge? There was no evidence of her involvement in criminal activity. She was a teacher, a beloved member of the community. What could have made her the target of such a violent crime? As Collins dug deeper, he uncovered a surprising lead. Adrianna had been in a brief, but intense, relationship with a man named David Cartwright, a local police officer with a reputation for being too friendly with some of the town's more questionable residents. Could this connection have led to her death? But when Collins questioned Cartwright, he claimed to have no knowledge of the incident and, in fact, was on duty at the time of the murder. His alibi checked out. Still, Collins couldn't shake the feeling that something about Cartwright's story wasn't adding up. The weeks went by with no new developments. The town of Millford was growing restless, and tensions rose as a frustration of unanswered questions settled over the community. Who were these fake police officers? Why had they killed Adrianna? And what was the motive? Detective Collins struggled to answer those questions, feeling the weight of the investigation pressing on him. The police were supposed to protect the people, yet now, it seemed, they were unable to protect even themselves. In the end, the investigation came to an anticlimactic close. The fake police officers were never found. Adrianna's killer, or killers, remained at large. No convictions, no closure. Detective Collins never stopped thinking about Adrianna Younge's tragic fate. He returned to his desk each day, sifting through the case files in the hope that something, anything, might reveal the truth. But the more he looked, the more questions arose. Was it a case of mistaken identity? A random act of violence? Or had someone been using the cover of authority to execute a much darker plan? The people of Millford could only guess. And even now, years later, the story of Adrianna Younge remains an open wound, a haunting mystery that refuses to close. As the investigation into the death of Adrianna Younge winds to a halt, we're left with a chilling reality that sometimes the truth remains just out of reach. Was this a tragic case of a wrong turn in the dark, or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? With so many unanswered questions, we may never know for sure. So, what do you think? Was Adrianna's death the result of a police mishap, a criminal enterprise gone wrong, or something much darker? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime investigations. Remember to hit the bell icon for more unsolved mysteries and police mishaps like this one. We'll be diving into new cases each day, and your engagement helps keep the investigation alive. Thank you very much for listening. See you in the other one.